And that brings us to an update on the Newtown Joint Municipal Authority. As I think most people know at this point, we had a presentation here by the Newtown Joint Municipal Authority on their ongoing project to build their own wastewater treatment plant in a location that is immediately adjacent to Middletown Township. And we had a number of residents come out, ask questions, express concern. We had our Environmental Advisory Council that provided some really fantastic information and insight. And so what we are here now to do is not only revisit this for discussion, but what we've been doing as a board in the meantime is we've engaged our solicitor, Mr. Esposito. We've also engaged the services of an environmental attorney. Mr. Kester, our township engineer, has been very busy, and our Environmental Advisory Council has been very busy. And so we are beginning to put together, at least high level, the beginnings of a plan for how we in Middletown Township can make sure we are involved in this process and make our feelings known. So Mr. Esposito, I'm going to ask you first, if you don't mind, just sort of run through from a legal standpoint, sort of the different paths and what our plans are.
So yes, thank you, Mr. Kizak. You did ask me to look at the legal options for this, and first I wanted to make sure we were getting the correct environmental attorney to handle this matter. I spoke with the chair of my law firm's environmental law group, who is Mark Freed. Mark has agreed that he would like to take the lead on this project. Just to give everyone a background of Mr. Freed, he is the chair of our environmental law group as well as the chair of our municipal law group. Mark served 8 years as an assistant counsel with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. At the DEP, Mark was lead counsel to the Southeast Regional Waste Management and Water Supply Management Programs. He also counseled DEP's water quality, storage tanks, and land recycling programs. Mr. Freed also served 2 years as criminal prosecutor in the Pennsylvania Attorney General's Environmental Crime Section, where he prosecuted cases involving water pollution, hazardous water, and storage tanks. Mark, when he went to the private sector, started representing municipalities and private resident groups related to environmental issues. Couple ones that he's currently doing, he currently represents Bristol Township related to their environmental issues with the Roman Haas sewage treatment plant. He's also represented plenty of municipalities opposing the Mariner 2 East Pipeline, as well as a couple other projects where he opposed landfills and quarries. So Mark and I discussed what our legal options would be, and there's two separate areas that we would go after this. The first one is the environmental planning and permitting stage with the DEP. The municipal authority would need to go through and get three phases with the DEP. The first would be to get Act 537 planning approval. That's where they kind of have to prove that they want the need for this project. With these three areas, the Act 537 planning approval, they would also need an NPDES permit, as well as a construction permit. I think it's called a Part 2 construction permit. What we would propose in those three permitting phases is to be involved, comment on the application, review the applications, and discuss all of these with DEP. If we didn't like if they were approved, we would then have the option to appeal any decisions to the Environmental Hearing Board. After that, there's also the land use stage, where the municipal authority would need to get land development and zoning approvals from Newtown Township. We would also be able to be involved with to be in the zoning hearing board hearings and present evidence and testimony in there. What we are suggesting to the board tonight is to permit us to write a formal letter to the Department of Environmental Protection to let them know that Middletown is an interested party in this. They are a border township and they specifically border this property, and we would like to be notified of any permit applications or anything moving along with this project.
So that's the environmental DEP side of it, and so that would be the first phase, sort of making our presence and involvement known to the DEP and basically letting us into the conversation so we are involved in every phase of this thing, right?
Yes, and we would also, even if they didn't notify us, which they probably will, they have to send out public notices. We would review all of the notifications to make sure we're always included.
Can you just give us a general idea of everything you just talked about, all these hoops that they have to jump through? How long is that process like?
It's going to take years.
Okay.
It's going to take years for them to get all of the permitting approvals from the DEP as well as the local approvals.
Okay. And then the other aspect of this is, I guess, the land development part, right?
Yes.
And so, can you just talk in a little bit more detail about what that involves?
So the land development part is, there's two aspects. The first would be zoning. They're going to want to build this plant on, I think it's roughly a 15, 17 acre property over there. Don't know the size and scope of what they're going to build. I believe we've talked about the zoning. They can only build on 10% of it as currently under the zoning ordinance there. If they want to build it slightly bigger, or if they want to encroach on setbacks, they would have to go into the Newtown Township Zoning Hearing Board. We would be able to go and participate in those hearings and become a party, cross-examine any of their expert witnesses, present our own experts and testimony. If they were approved there, we would have the ability, if so decided by the board, to appeal to the Court of Common Pleas any zoning approvals.
I just want to emphasize that point just to make sure that,
Yep.
so we would get party status at the Newtown Zoning Hearing Board, which would give us the opportunity to bring witnesses, cross-examine, and potentially appeal to the court.
Yes, we would request party status. I mean, they would likely give it to us. I can't say for sure that they would, but
Sure.
we would request it and prove why we deserve party status.
Got it.
If they got the zoning approvals and it moved forward, then they would go to the land development stage where they would have to do fully engineered plans of the project, and we could be included to review at their planning commission and their township board of supervisors as well. That's the last part. We would want to probably get more involved we would definitely want to be involved with the zoning aspect, and we would want to be involved with this aspect as well, but that aspect, if they comply with the subdivision land development ordinance, it's a little tougher at that stage.
So the two sort of primary prongs of attack would be DEP and
Yes.
Newtown Zoning Hearing Board. That's really where our two main focuses would be.
Yes.
And again, timetable. Is anything scheduled to go before the Zoning Hearing Board in Newtown?
There's been nothing, no applications made with Newtown Township yet, and even with the DEP, we haven't seen anything yet. There was a permit issued a year and a half ago with phosphorus levels, but that's not with this Act 537 planning facilities stage yet.
And again, from a timing standpoint, are these things dependent upon each other? Meaning, does DEP permitting have to happen before they can go through land development, or can they sort of run parallel?
They can run parallel. They would probably go for the Act 537 planning stage first, and then they can try to run parallel after that. It depends on how they want to do it, but it can run parallel, but I would assume they'd get some of the DEP approvals first. If they don't think they can get that, they wouldn't want to waste the time and effort going for the land development zoning aspect.
Got it. Any board members have questions for Mr. Esposito about the legal plan?
No, I just want to say thanks for the due diligence.
Yeah, and excited to have Mark Freed on board as our environmental attorney. I do know Mark personally, and he's very talented and very experienced attorney. I think he's the right man for the role for sure. Mr. Kessler, you want to talk about what you've been up to on the engineering side?
Absolutely, and tough to follow Mr. Esposito there, and we appreciate the effort on that legal side that it comes into play with the permitting. But just to mention a few things that we've started to look into and will continue to do so on the engineering side. We've mentioned DEP a few times. DEP is also the approving agency for the township's MS4 program, as we talk about annually. Has the TMDL permit, which is our overall reduction goals for phosphorus levels and things like that in each of the watersheds that are in Middletown Township. Court Creek watershed being one of them, with Lake Luxembourg there. The main thing that we're looking to do in the near term here is to identify the best point of contact on the engineering side of DEP. Our office works with the DEP on a regular basis here and throughout this southeast region, which includes basically the southeast area of Pennsylvania. And to start that dialogue, talking about our approved TMDL plan for the township and why a proposed wastewater treatment plant would have them rethink that at all as far as their reduction goals would be concerned. It's the concern of the water quality, obviously, on the engineering side, as well as some of the quality of life aspects that we've looked at and have discussed so far. Any kind of odors or things from the treatment plant that could affect the neighbors, and also downstream is the big concern, as the township's downstream from where they are. What we've done, and we want to thank the EAC as well as the community groups here in Middletown. We've met with the representatives from EAC. They are looking to put more of kind of a formalized memo together just to have all those concerns on paper, so that when we start this dialogue with the DEP, we can bring that with us and really start to get into the nook of the issues that we want to bring up and oppose. We want to look at any alternatives that this project may have that would not involve discharging downstream to Core Creek, as well as opportunities of having it just located somewhere different entirely as the old treatment plant was, and make sure all those options are vetted and reviewed not only by the DEP in the proper way, by their personnel, but that they have Middletown Township kind of in their ear and discussing it along the way, each step that they take a look at things. Just to clarify a bit, that DEP letter that Mr. Esposito referenced, it was 2023. That was the project, I guess initially they were reaching out to DEP to find out, it's called PELs, it's preliminary effluent limits, like what actually the treatment plant discharges. And they asked them kind of what the limit was for treated wastewater to the creek. They did issue a number there, and that is something that doesn't really have consistency with the TMDL plan that Middletown has. That's one of our first questions for the DEP. But it also is worth stating that in that letter, it clearly states that doesn't grant any kind of approvals or anything. It's just kind of an informational letter while they kind of assess some of the preliminary work on their project. So to point already stated, they would still have to come before the DEP with applications and all types of design they would have to eventually do if they're not kind of already putting some of those numbers together. And that still has to be reviewed. None of that's approved or granted any kind of limits to date. This is just some preliminary information that they gathered. So our next step on the engineering side is to start that dialogue with DEP, with the engineering folks. We also have planned to have more of a regular meeting with the EAC representation for the township and just kind of have all of our information and kind of our comments as a township put in one place. We're looking to regroup on January 24th, and we'll do that probably on a bi-weekly basis or so as we start to talk to DEP to get some more information.
Excellent. Any questions for Mr. Kessler from any board members?
I have a question. You were talking about the limits that they had proposed. Could you shed some light on what that means for everybody? The limits that Newtown is allowed to have and what we currently have?
Sure. So the limits that I'm referring to are kind of elements that wind up in the waterways, and there's safe levels that the DEP and the EPA kind of set as the thresholds, and every 5-10 years or so they might drop it a little bit, and it's intended with the TMDL plan that we have as a township to make sure that the waterways are trying to reach those goals. And when we say our MS4 program, we try to have projects that reduce those things like phosphorus and nitrogen and things like that in the water. That just is, some of it's natural in the environment, but then there's all kinds of things from roadways and sewers and everything else that find their way through the system. So with a treatment plant, obviously there's a lot going on there. You're treating it the best you can, but there's the discharge that is on the kind of downstream end that's supposed to be up to a certain level that it has to be water quality wise before the DEP will allow it back into a stream or creek or waterway. So when they ask for what the limits are from the DEP, that's then telling them here's your threshold that you need to meet, and that's what we want to definitely make sure that that's looked at very closely compared to what they told the township for our stormwater projects, and also if there's alternatives that can be considered as far as where that treatment plant would be sending its water.
Thank you.
Have we invested any money over the past few years in Core Creek specifically, trying to lower those levels through MS4? Have we had any projects?
I have to check all the locations of some of the basin retrofits that we've done and see if somewhere in Core Creek. I know there's a stream bank project that's on the kind of proposed list over the next couple of years. Most of the ones in recent years have been basin retrofits, and it's for that reason. It's to kind of manage that stormwater before it gets into the streamways. That's something I can look into though and follow
Yeah,
up.
because I know the county has also looked at doing a lot of that work for at least Lake Luxembourg. So yeah, I would be interested in seeing how much we've spent so far as a municipality and county to just increase those levels back up.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's important to note what you just said, that the lake obviously is on county property, right? It's in the county park, so they are definitely a big part of taking a close look at this and making sure that we look at every option possible when it's addressing the engineering side for this proposed plan.
Yeah, and I'll just make the comment that we have already, but do plan to continue and even increase our coordination with county leaders, our state and federal leaders, and make sure that everybody that can be involved in this process is involved in this process.